You're listening to VerySpatial Podcast, episode 757, March 23rd, 2025.
Hello and welcome to a VerySpatial Podcast. I'm Jesse.
I'm Sue.
I'm Barb.
And this is Frank.
And this week we're going to be talking to a few different people at the North Carolina GIS conference. But first, a little bit of news.
The Data Rescue Project is a project to create a data curation repository or clearinghouse for open data and public data. And it is started in part by the International Association of Social Science, Information Service, and Technology. And this is an association that's been around a very long time. It's 50 this year, and they are taking the lead so that you have a clearinghouse so that people aren't duplicating efforts for either collecting data or sharing data. So it's another place to come when people are asking, where do I find data now? Here is another place to go to find data that you might be looking for. They also are accepting volunteers.
This ties into a blog post we had recently that highlighted some of the efforts that are going on. So again, with many of the sites continuing to go offline in the United States, much to our consternation, these are ways to try to at least get back to that information so that we do still have access to data at some level. It is making it curious with teaching classes about accessing data and places we've gone to and told students about for decades are not necessarily where they need to go now. So yeah, it's throwing a little curveball into some of our lectures.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to, there's been a lot of situations in the past 30, 40 years, something like that, well, certainly since the internet basically has come online and allowed us to publish all this data, where we've kind of forgotten that a single point of failure is a single point of failure. The one where it was really highlighted for me was Katrina, where an awful lot of the federal data agencies had their data servers down in Louisiana for a whole lot of reasons that were perfectly legitimate reasons, but whenever the hurricane came through and shut off all power and flooded everything and stuff like that, suddenly there was a loss of a lot of really critical data. It's, it just sort of highlights the importance of not just technical redundancy, but in fact, there can be a political hurricane, for lack of a better analogy, that comes through and decimates something or hinders something. So we do need these multiple points of failure, not just from a technology standpoint, but also from a philosophical point of view.
Which ties into our second note that we keep seeing more and more committees that are directly related to geospatial technologies, either through data collection, data serving, data analysis, processing, making it public. All these different agencies that touch the geospatial space and data in general are seeing significant cuts, if not attempts at closure. We're seeing a lot of pushback at the federal judiciary level on the completely getting rid of. But of course, we're also seeing the current administration ignoring the judiciary in many ways. So just keep in mind, the one that I have in the show notes is the Office of Space Commerce, which had a committee that basically couldn't meet because funding was cut. We have seen other committees have their funding cut and their planned in-person meetings be canceled, but they continue to meet virtually. And so getting things through that way. So just be aware to, if there are committees that you're interested in, the activities they're undertaking, keep an eye on them, see what's going on. Some of this is ending up in the Federal Register, but at the same time, the Federal Register, I don't think, can probably keep up. I mean, and whether or not they're even publishing these to the Federal Register, which of course itself is not what's supposed to happen, not publishing information to the Federal Register, but yeah. So yes, go out, check out the committees that you're interested in, whether it be the Office of Space Commerce or any others that do, of course, have impacts on the geospatial industry. In this case, of course, the launching of various satellites and such.
Well, that's where I was wondering that a lot of these are shared resources. You go to them, you expect to find them because you've told people about them, you plan to use them for projects and other things, even in international partnerships, and then they're just suddenly not there. And then you do where is it? But also you wonder about the people that created it, maintained it, and how they're doing. So also reach out to people you know, even to tell them, great job on the work you've done. We've relied on it for a long time.
I don't have a link in the show notes, and because I didn't think the source was necessarily, I didn't want to rely on it, but I did hear, I'm going to call it a rumor, that somebody of a note in the current administration said that we should not be thinking about relying upon GPS anymore. We should be doing something else. And that was a little frightening to me. So I think that underlies the general notion that if you're doing anything with US based information, data, processes, or anything like that, start thinking about a plan B just to be safe, because a lot of this stuff is, I'm trying to think of the proper words without getting in too much trouble. It's less firm foundation than we thought.
Some of the trade journals, I saw recently the professional surveyors, their trade journals were talking about the impact on, their industry in geospatial, and just saying, this is going to be very, very difficult. How are we going to do this? So I know a lot of people are making plans. I've seen ESRI making announcements saying, this data is here. So you can also look at a lot of the ESRI. So in commercial UAV news, the actual name of the trade journal, there was an editorial talking about basically that drone technology, they believe in the next decade, is going to be seeing it's on the path to commoditization. What this means is that technology normally goes through different timelines, and that the drone technology industry is becoming a maturing industry where a lot of things settle into just a few companies. This is exciting, when I read it, because again, one of my first jobs was at a research company that was at that middle period of UAVs. And I remember working with commoditization and talking about it and working towards it. And it's a long effort that takes time, but it looks like we will be here in the next decade.
And that's it for the news.
So in the web corner, a geographer in Pittsburgh, understanding that many people do not understand Pittsburgh, its navigation, how it developed, anything like that, has gone ahead and made a map book of 50 maps of Pittsburgh to basically explain the layered history of their city, immigration, and the story behind the maps. And I thought this was a lot of fun. Map books are always fun, a cartographic interpretation of your city. So if you've always been fascinated by a city like Pittsburgh, which is, weirdly laid out. I know Joseph Kirsty has a small YouTube video where he talks about Pittsburgh. It's pretty fun.
She left out the most awesome part of it. The name, Mapsburg. That's just a cool name.
I'm here today with Jack Adams, who is an account executive with NCTech Imaging, or just NCTech?
Yeah, NCTech Imaging, NCTech, either way, yeah.
Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
And can you tell us a little about NCTech?
Yeah, so NCTech has been around about 15 years. We got our start developing camera systems for the Google Street View program, and about 5 years ago made kind of a strategic shift to start targeting other markets, collecting the imagery and collecting LiDAR data as well for local government and utilities and telco companies and some other verticals.
Now, as you mentioned, it's not a new company. Can you give us an idea of kind of where you guys started with that original kind of building out systems to get where you are today with data collection?
Yeah, so the company started in Edinburgh, Scotland, again, about 15 years ago. And the idea was to create a low cost but high quality camera system that could be scaled across Google's pretty large Street View program. So the idea was to build something, that was very scalable but could still produce high quality data. So yeah, that was kind of how the idea was born, and I've been developing and making new camera systems since.
What are some of the use cases that you see some of the customers that you're seeing here at North Carolina GIS Conference or at other places utilizing this information for right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think probably every person on Earth, or every person, that has access to the internet has probably looked at Google Street View before. It's just kind of an innate desire that if you're going somewhere, or if you want to see what a certain part of the world looks like, you go to Google Maps, you look at the Street View because you want to feel like you're there on the ground, right? So the use cases that we're seeing in the public sector, for example, with asset management or with property assessment, kind of stems from that desire to want to be on the ground looking at the assets that the city or the county or the state is responsible for. So really the biggest use cases we're seeing are asset management use cases for things like street signs, urban canopy and urban tree management, public utilities, private utilities, telecommunications, drainage assets. Really you name something that you can see from a street view image. We're able to then classify that using the LiDAR, make measurements of it, and take inventories for your asset management programs.
So kind of expanding beyond that, do you have a lot of people who are utilizing some of the 3D capabilities of having, the stereo, not stereo pair, but the overlapping images from the cameras, plus, of course, the LiDAR?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one thing to be able to see something in an image, which is nice, right? But then it's another thing to be able to take measurements in a 3D space of that, whatever you're looking at. It's also nice to include elevations and, XYZ coordinates when you're trying to locate something. So definitely a lot of use cases for the point cloud. And when you compare that point cloud with the imagery and with the highly accurate GPS data that we're using, you're getting spatial accuracies of less than 10 centimeters on this data. So you can have a high level of confidence that, when you locate something using our data, that it's really close to where it is in real life.
And of course, that's kind of just to set up the question of, so have you seen people using this with something like Geospatial Creator or things like that are coming from Google that, of course, are taking advantage of the Street View imagery and the location information in terms of the 3D space to begin to use those AR capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of on the cutting edge, right? So we're hearing from, very progressive technology-based city programs that, they want people to be able to basically be on their streets in an AR sense without actually being there. So we're not seeing a ton of it put into practice yet, but those are definitely avenues that people are exploring currently.
Okay. Is there anything you want to say about NCTech and how people can find out more about the imagery that you guys are generating?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to nctechimaging.com, and there's plenty of information there if you want to talk to someone in sales. There's an inquiries email you can just send in, and someone will reach out to you with more information. And then as far as, my personal information goes, it's jackson.adams@nctechimaging.com. Feel free to shoot me an email, and would be happy to chat.
Okay. Thanks, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse.
Have a good day. I'm here today with Dale Loberger, who is with Bradshaw Consulting, who we've not talked to, I think, in a couple of North Carolina GIS conferences. Thanks for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit what you're highlighting this time around?
Okay. Sure. BCS does a couple of different things, but it's all kind of relates to the same thing. So our real focus is on public safety, applications toward that, and anything that supports that. So the first thing that we're highlighting here would be the addressing application. So we have an enterprise-wide application to help maintain addresses, create addresses, and make sure that we have really good information that can support our public safety applications. Then on the public safety side, what we do primarily with EMS and fire, but we have some applications for law as well. But what we do is forecast where 911 calls are about to come from, and then we help pre-position resources so they're better able to respond, and then also help make better decisions than what the normal computer-aided dispatch, the CAD software, simply looks for who's the closest unit. So we have a new feature now that we look for what is the most appropriate unit. So looking at certification levels, looking at capabilities of a resource to make sure that we're getting the right resource that's going to give us the best outcome for that patient.
Let's start with the first one. Can you give us maybe a use case where folks are utilizing it nowadays or currently?
I probably should have Chris Harvey here. He's a real expert on that. He went off with a phone call. But that application is, like I say, an enterprise-wide application, so it uses a web page. And you can set up because normally at the county level, there are certain municipalities that will have addressing capabilities or responsibilities within their jurisdiction. And so this allows you to set permissions so that they can edit certain fields or certain data within their jurisdiction, but not others. They can access that, but they can't edit that. So it's all about controlling who has access to what sorts of edits, tracking those edits, so it's a true enterprise application from the time that a new property development is being proposed to get established addresses for that, to maintaining current addresses, readdressing. It handles all of those things.
Okay. And then, of course, for the public safety, can you give us a use case for that? Maybe an example of a municipality that's currently using it.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely my wheelhouse. So on the public safety side, we have quite a few customers in North Carolina since we're at NCGIS here. Many of them are along the I-85 corridor from Mecklenburg County, Union County, where I'm from, uses it. And we have some new customers now. Buncombe County just purchased it, but we have longtime customers to Guilford County. We have what we do for a lot of those customers, or all those customers. I'll even use Union as an example because that's where I live and also work. So they forecast where calls are going to be coming from. It's a routine that runs every 5 minutes. And we're generally out of the box about 75 to 80% accurate. People are always impressed by that. They think 911 calls are random. But we actually find that with a little bit of work and manipulating how we do that query, how we do that analysis, we can get anywhere from 85 to sometimes over 90% accurate. So having that insight of where a call is likely to be coming from gives you huge insight to be able to say, where should we put resources that are more likely to address those calls within a timely fashion that will actually make a difference in that patient's outcome or the outcome of that particular event, a fire or whatever. Because it's all about having the right resources there at the right time. So we can plan for how the resources can be there, and then also looking at utilizing the resources in the best way. So Union, for instance, just split up their fleet for EMS. So we have BLS, or basic life support, in addition to advanced life support. That's the traditional model. And so what that means is we have two different certifications. So as calls come in, the dispatch center looks at what is the call type, who's able to address that call, and try to preserve those resources that are the rarer advanced life support capabilities for those calls that absolutely need that level of service, and then use those other resources. So it may take a little bit longer to get there, but we're getting the right resource to that right patient so that we get the best possible outcome, and preserve that other resource so that when that cardiac arrest or something else comes in, they're there to be able to solve that.
Now, of course, there are municipalities who are curious about this now that they've heard about more of it. Can you tell us about how to get in touch with you or BCS in general?
Okay. BCS is around. Actually, I would encourage folks, especially in North Carolina, talk to some of the other counties, other municipalities around, find out what they're using. A lot of times it is BCS, but we're out of Aiken, South Carolina. So our website is bcs-gis.com. We're on social media as BCS, also as High Performance EMS, and also as Dynamic Fire Risk. So there's lots of ways to find us if you want to learn more.
Anything else you want to highlight for the company or other products?
Well, there's always things I can say. You give me a microphone, I can talk. But now we have some really great folks. We have consulting in our name. We don't do much of true consulting anymore. It's really the products that we focus on and customizing those products, because we want you to own your data. We want you to own your application. We want you to own the process. You don't have to come to us for that. We want to empower you to do that, because customers can do great things when you give them good products.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
On to the Events Corner. As always, if you are interested in any of these events or others, go check them out.
Big Ten GIS Conference 2025 is taking place April 11th, and that'll be virtual, so you can get to it anywhere.
Horizons 2025 Beyond Boundaries will be taking place April 27th through the 29th in Denver, Colorado.
And the Louisiana Remote Sensing and GIS Workshop will be taking place in the near future in May on the 6th through the 8th in Baton Rouge. Of course, if you want us to add your event to the podcast, send us an email to podcast@veryspatial.com.
If you'd like to reach us individually, I can be reached at sue@veryspatial.com.
I'm Barb at veryspatial.com.
You can reach me at frank@veryspatial.com.
And I'm available at Kinda Spatial. And of course, if you would like to find any of our contact information, head over to veryspatial.com/contacts.
As always,
We're the folks from VerySpatial.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Cute pics, drama blowing at the phone. We say, I know. PCH to Rodeo. On the world, turn it up, cause it's big low. Oh, yeah, feeling more than okay. Nothing getting in the way. This is how I wanna spend it. There's nothing to love more than good company. And everything feels so good when you're here next to me. Cause we can't go to the beach, get in the car, drive really far. It don't even matter, long as you're here, hanging with me, we can go see Mars being a scepter. Nothing I love more than good company. Yeah, yeah, alright. Got my friends by my side, yeah. Sun shining bright, yeah.